We've had a pretty cool couple of days here in Denmark, which is where I'll be for probably the next month, in Copenhagen specifically. So should be a fun time. I'm liking that I know that I'll be here long enough, and I have a host that is educated enough to like really kind of understand the area and the culture and stuff more than I normally would be able to. I really can't sing the praises of the dude enough, because he's somebody who pays a lot of attention to what are buildings for in the area, what is the history behind things. He reads a lot. He is involved in his community, you know, like politically engaged. I don't know, just like checks all the boxes for like a, you know, good citizen. So I have certainly been enjoying that and picking his brain about things in the area. And today I want to talk a little bit about that. I had a really cool day where I went out with him and another streamer slash viewer who will remain unnamed, just because I'm not sure if they want me talking about that or not. But yeah, we had a really cool day. We honestly got through a lot. By the time I came home, I was exhausted, but I mean, like, we had a solid full day of just seeing a bunch of stuff. And again, you know, once you get on top of like a really huge building and you can see the whole skyline, it really does make a difference to have somebody there with some knowledge of architecture, some knowledge of the city, who I think without fail, anything we would point to, he would have some idea of what that thing is or what it's for, or some little factoid about it. And, you know, I'll be a broken record about that, but that's because honestly, both me and the other streamer person who was hanging out with us were just blown away by his like deep understanding of everything in the area. So that's been fun. For my Denmark adventures, I didn't take pictures. However, I have a bunch of photos I got from online to kind of walk you through the experience a little bit here. Our adventures start in Reffan. Now, Reffan is this cool industrial area where they've taken these shipping crates and they've stacked them up, and they've built a bunch of restaurants and eateries and drinking establishments in them. And they're all nestled right in this little harbor in Copenhagen. So you can see the boats passing by and this seaplane that comes and goes from Sweden every so often. This is an aerial view of Reffan. Another cool feature that you're seeing right here is the skate park. So we cut across this skate park to try to get to the seating right here by the ocean. That's where we hung out. This is what you guys saw earlier, that kind of big industrial building that we saw in the very first picture. And then over here, kind of just out of frame, you have an artist collective that's aboard a boat. Lots of people use the boats in Copenhagen to either live on or to run businesses out of. So that's really cool. Over here on the back is a bit of a sneak preview to what we did next. So this giant thing over here is called Copenhill, and it is I believe it's like a natural clean energy type of plant. I think they burn clean energy there, and they have this big smokestack over here. And rather than having this big ugly building like what you kind of have over here, they built this whole shell around it, and they turned it into a ski slope. So even during the spring or summertime when there's not snow, you can ski down this artificial grass slope all the way down. And then you can also climb up this and get all the way up to the top, and there's a little cafe up here and a beautiful view of all of the city, which is all this way that you don't see. But yeah, this is Reffan, and this is the aerial view of it. You have housing over here that is kind of built similarly in this weird modern shipping storage container sort of fashion. You have more industrial buildings back here. Really cool spot. And then of course you chill out here to eat your food. Over here is your sandy areas for hanging out. We went to this bar that's inside at the middle of Reffan and got our beers here and then chilled out outside. And then we took the long walk all the way around here, all through these trees, all through around here. And then we walked right here. And then we started on our huge ascent up to the top of this ski slope. Now, this is, I think, nearly, or maybe even more, I guess if you count the smokestack, this is about 90 meters up. So it's quite tall. Right here on the side, you have the world's tallest climbing wall. and people climb the 90 meters all the way from the bottom all the way up to the top. And one thing that I didn't know about climbing rocks that might be a cool factoid for you people at home is that the different colors represent different difficulty. And when you start climbing a rock wall, you basically pick which color you're going to do, which should correspond to the difficulty again. And then you try to only stick to those rocks. I had no idea. I thought they were just colored for funsies. But I do vaguely remember in PE having this explained to me, but like it was a good refresher from my host. Again, I got lucky. I got lucky with the host that knows everything about everything. So, anything we point to or anything we talk about, he always has some little factoid that he can, gratiate us with or whatever. That was cool. This is a hell of a fucking walk. I will tell you, there were multiple breaks that we took walking up here. It is quite a large building. Okay. And this goes up even higher. This is a properly massive structure. And there's two little viewing ports here where you can kind of see into the building, and there's an elevator which we were not informed of the existence of that is on the other side of this, that we then took down because there was no way in hell that we were climbing down from this thing. So there's a ski lift here that runs the whole thing, but you have to be a skier to take it. And so we took that elevator down, and that was cool because it goes through the shell of this building. So again, this is just an outer cover placed onto this kind of natural gas power plant thing. So when you go inside of here, you can see all of the huge silos with all the stuff that they're burning and boiling and whatever. And it's really cool. You descend through the kind of hollowed shell of this building, and it was quite a sight. It was very, very interesting. That's this. Oh wow, we can actually zoom here. So one cool thing, you see this big old chimney stack here doesn't exist anymore. It was torn down. My host was talking about how like he kind of sees this every day when he goes to work and whatever. And he was trying to like keep track of when they were going to blow it up because he wanted to see it. Because again, our host loves Copenhagen and he wants to see everything that's going on in the city. And they just kind of nonchalantly at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday blew it up low key and didn't tell anybody. So they destroyed this, without anybody seeing it. And he's like, one day I just like read on the news that it was destroyed, and I looked out and I'm like, oh, they blew it up. And I've been waiting this whole time to see when they would blow it up, and I didn't get to watch it get blown up. And one cool thing I'm noticing about Denmark, and I'm sure it's true of other countries as well, is the reclaiming of materials and buildings and things like that. So they end up taking all of the debris from this and using it as gravel in new construction over here because they're trying to build something else here. So that was kind of cool to see. And beyond that, the power plant that exists right next to this Copenhill, it used to burn, and I'm sure we'll see this in another slide here. I think it's right here. So this power plant here used to burn all this like oil that they got from an oil refinery thing that turns it into fuel just behind this building here. But not clean, right? And so what they did was they kept using the fuel production place for like proper fuel for other purposes, and then they repurposed this whole power plant here to run on something more clean. But it's just interesting to see all this development of power creation, because behind all of this are some windmills that are out in the middle of the ocean between you and Sweden. And then if you look across to the coast of Sweden, you can actually see nuclear power plants. So you kind of have this kind of multiple steps of different kinds of energy production. You have this clean burning plant here. You have what I believe is some kind of it heats the water for Denmark. So people when they're using their heated water and whatever, it's coming from this place, and now it burns cleaner fuel. You have the actual oil to fuel, converting place over here, and then you have windmills in the middle of the ocean, and just on the other side of the ocean you have Sweden with its many different power plants on the coast, one of which is a decommissioned nuclear power plant. So it's cool to have kind of that diversity of stuff. If you're afraid of the ski things, these things that carry you up and down, I would highly advise against taking this one, because up here where you get onto the ski lift, there is a drop straight to your death. we were joking about taking the ski lift down and just jumping on the thing. And I was like, oh, I certainly wouldn't, because it's literally a foot from the edge and you would plummet like, 80 meters to your death. So yeah, not for me. But yeah, this ski lift might be particularly scary for you. It's certainly not high above the ground here, but if you were to topple over the edge, you are done skis. That would be the end of you. So you take this path up. It gives you some indication every 10 meters of how high you're getting, all the way up to, I think it's like 85 meters right here. So maybe 90 meters by the time you're way up at the top. And nestled in here, kind of hidden, we didn't even see it when we came up because it's blocked by the greenery, is a little cafe that you could eat at with windows that kind of view out over all of Copenhagen back here in the background. Again, my host was able to look at this skyline, and every single building, he knows what it is, and well, architecturally what it's about and what it's for, and all that kind of stuff. So it was very fun pointing out the different buildings and having him tell us what's what. So that was a fun time. And yeah, and then there's a little elevator in here that you can take all the way down that we of course did not see, otherwise we would have taken that. In here, you're kind of getting some look inside of the plant here. They have these different little viewing areas where you can take a peek inside. So that's cool. But yeah, people ski down this all year round, pretty tight. And all of this that you're seeing on the side of the building is just these like interesting metal bits. So these aren't like proper windows or anything, of course, because again, this is just a shell on top of a big old, power plant sort of deal. I don't think it's a power plant. I think it's for like clean burning of nonsense. But yeah, very, very fun. Oh, this is a much more high def picture. So as you can see, these aren't windows or anything. This is concrete, baby. And there's the big old building inside, but real trippy, real trippy. Again, host is plugged into architecture and stuff, so he was telling us that initially these were supposed to have plants in them, and those plants were supposed to hang over. And imagine what this would look like with a bunch of plants, and the plants are draping down over all these different kind of little basins, because they actually dip inside a little bit and they have a cavity where you could plant things. But pricing and expenses and whatever, the building people decided not to put the plants inside, which was a bummer to the architect. I think if I remember right, the architect ended up quitting shortly after, finishing this project. But yeah, you can also get a peek at the rock climbing wall here that again goes from the bottom all the way up to the tippity top. And yeah, very interesting building. Older picture because you still have this smokestack over here. You can see the people climbing up and get a sense for the scale of this behemoth of a ski slope. But yeah, very, very, very fun. Had a lot of fun. This is the view from the bottom, climbing up this monstrous rock climbing wall all the way up to the top. And then here, after that, we went to Christiania. Now, I will say, don't kind of judge all of Copenhagen by Christiania. It is very different from the whole rest of the city. Christiania is this kind of like anarchist sort of commune place where people kind of built their own houses and are living away from maybe the tyrannies of government or whatever. There's a sign on the outside of Christiania that says you are now leaving the EU, and then there's a sign on the other side that says you are now entering the EU. So they have this whole cultural thing about being kind of separate from all of that. And part and parcel to that, there is a main square area where there are people that sell drugs. And they have these little pop out, they look like lemonade stands almost. They're like plywood stands with like, spray paint on them that says like weed to go or whatever. And the reason why they're like that and so temporary is because every once in a while the police will come through there and, stop everything, get everybody in trouble, and remind them that they are in the EU, and that they have to take it and run away with it really, really quick. So an interesting community. And the reason why I didn't pick a single picture and that I decided to go with the Google search results is because it's so varied. Every house there is so very different. Some of them were existing buildings like this building here. Some of them were military buildings, because what Christiania used to be is it used to be like a kind of military area where they had barracks and munitions depots and things like that. That whole coast of Copenhagen, different parts of it at different points in time were used as like major defenses against the British, against the Swedes, you know, and against the Germans, of course. So a lot of these coastal areas that we were in Reffan and in Christiania, these are places where there are these old military buildings that people have reclaimed and reused. And I think it's cool that Copenhagen has let people reuse these buildings and kind of give them a new life. As you can see, people go crazy with it, man. You have a lot of really colorful, interesting artwork and stuff on a lot of these buildings. On the kind of outermost parts of Christiania, you have people that are building their own houses and stuff like that. So you see some stuff where people have clearly built these things from scratch. This is an example of maybe one of those kinds of areas. And it's really, really neat. It's a neat place with neat people that are certainly loving life, you know? And yeah, you have these interesting buildings that are all different shapes, sizes, colors, all that stuff. So yeah. If you come here and even if you don't like weed or whatever, I think there's more to be enjoyed here than just that. And that's kind of something I want to emphasize here, is that this doesn't really represent what Copenhagen is necessarily, but I think it's an important part of the culture and stuff. There is like and this is something that always surprises me about Europe. There are anarchism and stuff is a more present thing. Like you can go to like Antifa and anarchist bars and stuff in all the countries I've been to so far, and there's a lot of support actually in Copenhagen for this Christiania place and for some of these anarchists taking over buildings and living inside of them and stuff. There is actually an event, I think it was over 10 years ago, where in downtown Copenhagen there was this building that a bunch of anarchists occupied, and they were living in there and squatting in there. And at some point the government decided, okay, enough of this, we're tearing it down, we're building something else. And they tried to kick all the people out, and anarchists flew over from all these neighboring countries, and they all protested in the streets along with a bunch of people from Copenhagen. And the people were in an uproar. They don't like that the government is messing with these anarchist people. And there was a big riot thing that happened, and people were throwing rocks at the police, and the police were firing live rounds on the protest. It was a whole mess. And there is definitely, for me at least, a surprising amount of support for anarchist people and for those sorts of folks. And I think the continued existence and support of Christiania is a good example of that. So in terms of how it would reflect, Copenhagen and stuff, I would say that is a connection that I'm making at least, but not necessarily to the drug use and all that sort of stuff. I think a lot of foreigners are here selling drugs, and there in the background you can see some of what I'm talking about here. But yeah, I did not partake. I didn't do any, but it is certainly available there. So if you're into that, that's a place for you to stop off at and walk around. Don't just sit in one place. There's a lot of cool buildings and history to be found here. So definitely go exploring. Bring someone with you that knows a thing or two about the area, and definitely enjoy it. It's a cool spot. It's fun because a lot of people also look at people in Christiania as crazy weirdos, but they still use the place to get their weed. So with time, most people just end up accepting them in their way. Yeah, I mean, different folks live different ways. Some people like living the boring old man lifestyle where they do nothing but read books and watch old movies or whatever, and some people like the living independently of the man and fuck the system and smoking weed or whatever else. A community is made up of all sorts of people with all sorts of interests and all sorts of cultures, and I think that's a cool thing about Copenhagen is I get a feeling of a lot of like multicultural stuff going on. There's a lot of different areas with different kinds of people, different kinds of food and decoration and architecture, and it's a fairly diverse place, and I think maybe that's reflected here as well. There's different sorts of folks and very different sorts of areas, and everything is covered here. Are those original posters from Reddit? I asked the host about this. They almost came from Reddit. They're actually from the garbage.